At 84 years old, I truly believed that pain was just something I had to live with. I thought it was a part of getting older, a companion I never asked for, but one I had no choice but to accept. For over a decade, pain had settled into my life quietly but persistently. It started in my knees, moved into my hands, and then finally took hold of my back. It was not the sharp, dramatic kind of pain that makes you cry out. No, it was the dull, constant kind, the kind that wears you down slowly, like a shadow that never left. It followed me through every room, every step, every attempt to live normally. I moved slower. I hesitated more. I felt tired, not just in my body, but in my spirit. I saw doctors. I tried therapy. I took pills with names I could barely pronounce. I rubbed ointments, followed routines, even listened to every piece of advice from friends and family. But nothing ever truly helped, not in a lasting way. One night, after a long day of discomfort, I sat in silence and said to myself, maybe this is just what getting older feels like. Maybe this is my life now. I had almost given up. But then something changed. Something unexpected, something small, something I had ignored in the back of my kitchen cupboard for years. Turmeric. Just that, a simple spice. But what it gave me in return was something I never expected. That is what I want to share with you today. Not just the recipe, but the experience. Because if you are listening right now and you are feeling tired of pain, tired of trying, tired of hoping, then this story might be for you too. The pain no one sees. For me, the pain began quietly. Just a small pinch in my left knee whenever I climbed the stairs or stood up from my favorite chair. I told myself, it's nothing, just age. But weeks passed and it got worse. That little pinch became a sharp ache. Then it spread. First the other knee, then my hips, and before long it reached my hands. Suddenly, simple things became difficult. Turning a doorknob, holding a spoon, buttoning a shirt. In the mornings, my fingers felt like they belonged to someone else. Stiff, uncooperative, foreign. I stopped doing small tasks, not because I was lazy, but because I was afraid of the pain that followed. Even walking, something I had done every day without thinking, started to feel like a risk. I found myself watching the ground with every step, nervous about falling, about hurting myself more. Sleep became a stranger. Some nights I would lie awake for hours, shifting and turning, hoping to find a position that would not hurt. Sometimes I got 2 or 3 hours of rest. Other nights I simply waited for the sun to rise. And when it did, I felt no better. If anything, I was more exhausted than before. That kind of constant pain, most people do not see it. They might see you walking slower or taking more time to sit down, but they do not feel what you feel. They do not know the way it drains you, not just physically, but emotionally, too. I remember looking in the mirror one afternoon and barely recognizing myself. I looked tired, not just from age, but from carrying around the weight of constant discomfort. And worst of all, I had started to accept it. I had started to believe that this was just my life now. That moment, looking at myself and seeing someone who had almost given up, was one of the saddest moments I can remember. Because even though I had tried everything, even though I had done all the right things, I was still in pain, still waiting, still hoping. And yet, something deep inside me was not ready to give up. Not completely, not yet. The search for relief. When you live with pain long enough, you begin to search for relief in every corner. That was me. I tried everything I could. I started with simple over-the-counter pain relievers, pills that promised fast results. At first, they seemed to help a little, but the effects wore off quickly. My doctor then prescribed stronger anti-inflammatory medications. I took them cautiously, always worrying about what they might do to my stomach or my kidneys. I did not want to replace one problem with another. Then came the creams and gels. I would rub my knees every night with menthol or capsaicin, hoping that the burning sensation meant something was working. Some nights I imagined the pain fading, but by morning it was always there again. I also began physical therapy, gentle exercises, stretches, and massages. I followed every instruction carefully, never missed a session, and to be honest, there were times I felt a little better, but it never lasted. A few days later, I was back where I started. I read magazines, online articles, anything I could get my hands on. I asked friends. I tried supplements with names I could barely pronounce. Some came in bright bottles, others looked more natural. Every time someone said, "This helped me," I tried it because I wanted to believe that anything, might work for me too. But every time, the same thing happened, a small flicker of hope followed by the disappointment of reality. I began to feel like I was running in circles, chasing relief that was always one step ahead. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a quiet afternoon. I had spent most of the day sitting because my legs simply did not want to carry me. I looked out the window and felt a kind of sadness that went beyond pain. I was tired, not just in my body, but in my heart. Tired of trying, tired of being tired. And then, as if life had been waiting for that exact moment, I got a phone call from my niece. That call was the beginning of something I never expected. The turn. That phone call from my niece came at just the right time. Her name is Helen. She lives in another city, but we talk often. She is one of those people who always listens, even when you're not saying much. That day, I told her everything. How I had barely walked more than 30 minutes all week, how my knees ached, how I had tried everything I could think of and nothing had helped. I do not know what I expected her to say. Maybe just sympathy. But instead, she paused for a moment and then asked one simple question. "Uncle," she said gently, "have you ever tried turmeric?" I actually laughed. I told her I had a jar of turmeric in my kitchen cabinet, one that had probably been there for 10 years. I remembered using it once for an Indian recipe, but I had never thought of it as medicine. "Look into it," she said. "I am not telling you to stop your treatments, but it might help more than you imagine." After we hung up, I just sat there. Turmeric, a spice. It sounded too simple, almost silly. But later that evening, with nothing to lose and a little spark of curiosity in my chest, I sat down in front of my computer and started to read. I began with simple articles. Then I found scientific studies, interviews with doctors, and stories from people all over the world. They all spoke about this bright yellow root, used for thousands of years, not just in cooking but in healing. In India, they called it the golden powder. In China, it had been used for everything from joint pain to digestion. Even Western medicine was beginning to recognize it. What surprised me most was the consistency in what people said. Turmeric was not magic, but it worked, especially when used properly and regularly. I learned about curcumin, the active ingredient inside turmeric. It was described as a powerful anti-inflammatory, not the kind that masked pain temporarily, but the kind that actually helped calm down the root cause, chronic inflammation. The same inflammation that had been burning slowly in my joints for years. One quote from a doctor stayed with me. He said, "Turmeric is not a miracle cure, but it is one of the most complete natural anti-inflammatories we have. When used consistently, it can make a real difference." That was the moment I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Hope. Not wild, desperate hope, but quiet, grounded hope, the kind that says, maybe, just maybe, this could help. So, I stood up. I walked to the kitchen, and I found that old jar of turmeric, still sitting there, waiting for me. That night, for the first time in years, I felt curious again. And at this age, curiosity is more than a feeling. It is a reason to keep going. The power of turmeric. So, what exactly is turmeric, and why did something so ordinary become something that made a difference in my life? Turmeric is a root. It looks a bit like ginger, only smaller and with a bright golden color that stains everything it touches. Most people know it as a spice used in cooking, especially in Indian dishes. But for thousands of years, turmeric has been used for much more than flavor. In traditional medicine systems like Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, it has long been respected as a powerful healing tool. Inside turmeric is something special, an active compound called curcumin. This is what gives turmeric its golden color and its natural power. Curcumin has been shown to help reduce inflammation in the body. And that is exactly what caught my attention. You see, inflammation is not always a bad thing. When we get injured or fight off an infection, our body creates inflammation as a way to heal. That kind of inflammation, called acute inflammation, is short-term and helpful. But when inflammation sticks around for too long, even when there is no injury, it becomes chronic. And chronic inflammation is something many older adults live with, often without even realizing it. It can show up in so many ways: stiff joints, constant fatigue, brain fog, swelling in the hands or legs, pain that seems to come from nowhere. Over time, this slow-burning inflammation wears down our muscles, joints, even our digestive and nervous systems. And most of the time, we are told to manage the symptoms with medications, creams, or rest. But curcumin works differently. It does not just cover up the pain. It actually goes after the root of it. It helps block the proteins and pathways in the body that cause inflammation to stay active. And the best part, it does this gently. It is not harsh like some medications. It does not upset the stomach or create dependency. Instead, it supports the body in finding balance again, slowly, steadily, and naturally. What I also learned is that for people our age, this gentle effect is especially important. As we get older, our bodies become more sensitive. Some treatments that once worked well can suddenly cause more harm than good. But turmeric, when used correctly, respects the body's pace. It works with the body, not against it. I read a phrase that has stayed with me ever since. It said, "Turmeric does not work like a hammer. It works like the sun, slowly warming, quietly healing day after day." That felt true to me, and it is what gave me the confidence to try it for myself. The Golden Cup Recipe. Once I understood how turmeric worked, I decided I wanted to try it. But I did not want something complicated. I did not want to buy fancy ingredients or follow some confusing health trend. I just wanted something simple, something I could make at home with what I already had in my kitchen. So, I searched for a basic recipe, something natural, something gentle. And after reading different versions, I found one that worked for me. I call it my golden cup. Here's exactly what I used. 1 level teaspoon of turmeric powder, a small pinch of ground black pepper, just a pinch, but do not skip it. I will explain why in a moment. 1 cup of unsweetened plant-based milk. I used oat milk because that is what I had, but you can use almond milk, rice milk, or even cow's milk if you prefer. 1/2 teaspoon of coconut oil if you do not have coconut oil. Extra virgin olive oil will work, too. A small piece of fresh grated ginger. This is optional, but I recommend it if you like a little extra warmth and flavor. To prepare it, I followed these steps. 1. I poured the cup of milk into a small saucepan. 2. I added the turmeric, black pepper, grated ginger, and coconut oil. 3. I placed it on the stove over very low heat. It is important not to let it boil. I stirred it gently with a wooden spoon to keep everything mixed. 4. After about 5 minutes, when the mixture was warm and steaming slightly, I turned off the heat. 5. I strained it through a small, fine mesh strainer to remove any ginger or turmeric that had not dissolved. 6. I let it cool slightly and then drank it slowly like a cup of tea. The taste is earthy and warm. The turmeric gives it a deep, rich flavor. The ginger adds a little spice, and the oil makes it smooth. You can add a small bit of natural honey if you prefer something sweeter, but I drank mine plain. There was something comforting about the simplicity. Now, here is something important. That pinch of black pepper is not just for flavor. Black pepper contains a compound called piperine. Piperine helps your body absorb curcumin, the healing compound in turmeric, 20 times more effectively. Without it, most of the curcumin would pass through your system without doing much. So, even though it is just a tiny amount, never forget the pepper. At first, I made a few mistakes. I thought maybe using more turmeric would work faster, but the flavor became too strong and my stomach did not like it. More is not always better. The real key is consistency. Not how much you take, but how regularly you take it. I also tried making it in the microwave once, but it came out uneven and lacked the calm, soothing feeling I got from making it slowly on the stove. There is something special about preparing it with your hands, with care. For me, it became a small evening ritual. I drank it every night before bed instead of my usual cup of tea. It helped me relax. It felt good knowing I was doing something kind for my body. After so many years of waiting for doctors or treatments to fix me, I finally felt like I was part of the process again, like I was helping myself. And that, I believe, is part of the healing too. What I felt day by day. I did not expect much on the first night. I had made my golden cup calmly, stirred it slowly on the stove, and sat at the kitchen table with a warm mug in my hands. The scent was earthy, almost like something from the past, familiar but forgotten. I drank it slowly, not hoping for a miracle, just giving it a chance. That night, I went to bed thinking, well, at least I tried. I had no expectations, just a quiet sense of curiosity. On the second morning, something was different. I woke up the same way I always did, stiff, cautious. But as I walked to the kitchen, I noticed my steps felt a little easier. My knees still ached, but the movement was smoother. When I stepped up onto the front porch, I did not need to hold the railing as tightly as usual. It was not dramatic, just a small shift, but it made me stop and think. By the afternoon, I felt a bit more steady on my feet. I could walk across the room without bracing myself on the furniture. It made me wonder, was it the turmeric or just a good day? That evening, I made the golden cup again, this time with more attention. I stirred it slowly, letting the warmth rise around me, and drank it with a quiet kind of hope. The third day brought more surprises. I opened the kitchen window that morning and realized I had not rubbed my fingers for 10 minutes like I usually did. My hands felt looser, more ready. I stepped outside and walked along the hallway without that heavy pressure in my knees. The stiffness was still there, but it was lighter. And more importantly, I was not afraid to move. That fear that every step would hurt was beginning to fade. I went about my day carefully, but with more confidence. At one point, I bent down to reach something on a shelf and realized, just for a moment, I had done it without thinking. No hesitation, no pain sharp enough to stop me. It was like my body was slowly waking up again. Then came the fourth day. I remember that day clearly because it was the first time in a long time I felt something I had almost forgotten: peace. Not because the pain had vanished, but because I finally felt in control again. I made breakfast. I took a walk around the yard. I even called my niece to tell her how I was feeling. She listened, then laughed softly and said, "See, Uncle, sometimes what heals us is not in the pharmacy, but in the kitchen." That night, I went to bed without dread, without that heavy feeling that another night of discomfort was coming. For the first time in years, I felt like something inside me was changing, not just in my joints, but in my spirit. It was not a miracle. It was not perfection, but it was a beginning. Rediscovering life. After those first few days, something started to return that I did not even realize I had lost: my sense of self. You see, when you live with pain for a long time, you begin to forget who you were before it. You stop doing little things, not because you want to, but because pain makes every decision for you. It tells you when to sit, how to move, and what to avoid. Slowly, without even noticing, you stop reaching for what used to bring you joy. But after I began drinking my golden cup each night, that quiet voice of pain started to fade. Not disappear completely, but soften. It no longer controlled every moment of my day. And in that space, something beautiful happened. I began doing things I had not done in years. I started walking around the yard each morning, just 10 or 15 minutes. But it felt like a return to something I had missed: the fresh air on my face, the sunlight on my skin. It felt like I was rejoining the world, not just watching it from the window. I opened jars without gritting my teeth. I reached for my shoes without bracing myself. I even cooked dinner for myself one night without needing to sit down every few minutes. But more than that, I felt lighter in my heart. I began to look forward to things again. I smiled more, even laughed. That feeling of helplessness, the one that had followed me for so long, began to lift. I was still 84 years old, but I no longer felt defeated by my age. Instead, I felt like I had found a rhythm, a way to live with more peace, more comfort, and more purpose. And it all started with a cup. One simple cup made with care, with intention, and with the belief that maybe, just maybe, my body still had something good left to give. I was not chasing youth. I did not want to be young again. I just wanted to feel like myself again. And little by little I did. Lessons I learned. Looking back, I learned something very important. Relief is not always loud or fast. Sometimes it comes quietly, like a gentle wave. And when it does, you have to be patient enough to notice it. This golden cup did not change everything overnight. It was not like flipping a switch. It was more like opening a window and letting in fresh air little by little. The relief I felt was not dramatic, but it was real. It was steady. And most of all, it was honest. I never stopped seeing my doctor. I did not throw away my medications or abandon the advice I'd been following for years. What I found was something to add, not to replace. A complement, not a cure, something that helped my body work a little easier with less tension and less pain. One of the biggest lessons I learned was that consistency matters more than anything else. If you expect turmeric to work like a pain pill, fast and strong, you will probably be disappointed. But if you treat it like a small act of care, something you give to your body each day, you will start to feel the difference. It is like brushing your teeth or putting on your shoes in the morning. You do it not because you expect a big change right away, but because it helps you stay well over time. So, if you are thinking of trying this yourself, here's what I would say. Use good quality turmeric. The more natural and fresh, the better. Always add a pinch of black pepper. It helps your body absorb the benefits of turmeric properly. Do not use too much. A small teaspoon is enough. Taking more will not speed up the results and might upset your stomach. Take it once a day. I found that drinking it in the evening worked best for me. It helped me relax and gave my body something gentle before sleep. Most of all, listen to your body. You know it better than anyone else. You do not have to do this perfectly. Just do it with care. Because what matters most is not just the ingredient, but the intention behind it. This was never just about turmeric. It was about showing myself that I still mattered. That I was still worth taking care of. That even at this age, I could choose something that made me feel better without waiting for someone else to tell me it was okay. A message from my heart. At 84 years old, I never expected to feel different. I thought the pain I lived with was just part of the deal, that it would always be there and that I had no choice but to carry it. But now I know better. It was not just the turmeric that made a difference. It was the act of caring for myself again. The decision to give my body something gentle, to believe just a little that something good was still possible. And you know what? My body listened. Sometimes what we need most is not found in a bottle or a prescription. Sometimes it is found in a small choice, a quiet habit, a cup made with our own hands. That kind of care speaks louder than pain. It reminds the body that it is not forgotten, that we still have hope, that we still want to live well. So if you are waking up each morning with aches that make you hesitate to rise, if you feel tired of trying, tired of searching, tired of being tired, I understand you. Truly, I have been there. I know how heavy that kind of pain can be, not just on your body, but on your spirit. But I also want to tell you this. Do not give up curiosity. Do not stop exploring. Not out of desperation, but out of possibility, out of the honest question, what if this helps me? You do not need to believe in miracles. You just need to believe that small steps matter. That simple things can make a difference. That every gentle act of care is a message to your body that says, I still believe in you. If this story moved something in you, if it made you feel seen or understood, then I invite you to try. Not because I promise a cure, but because you deserve to feel better. You deserve to feel more like yourself again. And if you have tried natural remedies like this before, I would love to hear from you. Share your experience in the comments. Let us learn from each other. Let us support one another. You never know, your story might give someone else the courage to take that first small step. And if you know someone who is struggling, someone who needs hope or peace or just a reason to try again, share this with them. You might change their day. You might change their life. Thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, every year counts. And every small step toward relief, toward freedom, toward joy, it all counts, too.